Hi, everyone. Welcome to episode 11 of the Future of Work show, where we discuss ideas with relevance for the future. For those of you who are joining us for the very first time, my name is Shalini. I'm a co founder of Uncube, and I work at the intersection of people and organizations and the future of work. My colleague Jaspreet Bindra focuses on business and technology, and both of us are educators and advisors. Now, for the topic of our show today, the future of robotics in India. Now, most of us have had many different experiences when we think about robots. Sometimes we are excited with anticipation for what that's going to mean for all of us. Sometimes we're inspired, and sometimes we're also a little bit anxious. So, to help us understand what the future of robotics in India looks like, we have the robot man himself, Mr. Rajiv Karwal, whom I'm just bringing on. Hi, Rajiv. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Hello, Shalini. It is my pleasure.
No, wonderful. For those of you who are new to Rajiv, Rajiv has had an extremely illustrious career through the consumer durables industry. He's worked in leadership roles in Onida, Philips, Electrolux, LG, I think pretty much all the major consumer durable companies of that time. Before he started off as an entrepreneur, and in 2007, he founded Milagro, which is India's number one service robotics organization. So my first question, Rajiv, is really an understanding of how has this journey been since 2007? You spent so many years in the consumer durables industry. Was the journey into robotics as you expected, or were there many surprises along the way?
So 2007 to 2011, we were pretty much a consulting firm.
Mhm.
So, the journey in the robotics field started around end of 2011 and maybe, about a year of preparation before that. And, when 2011 end, we launched the products and we had actually launched the floor robots first and then the other robots came in later. The response was very good. We launched through our own website. We launched with Flipkart. At that time, Amazon wasn't there. And we quickly actually also brought in Chroma and, Vijay Sales and, other durable
Mhm.
retailers. And we were surprised that demand even from smaller towns was coming, but it was basically the early adopters of technology or robots, and then the demonetization happened, and thereafter very quickly followed by GST, which was, we were put in the 28% category. Robots wasn't a essential purchase item. It was a discretionary purchase item, for the customers. And most of these guys, while we used to sell officially, the people used to buy cash on delivery and things like that. And when cash finished, the sales fell through. The dual, GST and demonetization blow by almost 70%. And there
Wow.
was a time when I kind of felt that what's the point? Just quit. But as I realized, it is never the idea which fails you. It is you who fail an idea, and an idea also has a time, when it has to come or kind of move mainstream. Maybe we were early on in the journey, with slightly early than what the market had evolved. But last couple of months, unfortunately, it took a pandemic to bring
Mhm.
robots mainstream. But we have seen massive growth. Almost we have ourselves grown by 400 to 500% in the last couple of
Mhm.
months. And if supply chain constraints weren't there, probably we would have grown much more. So it has been a roller
Wow.
coaster. We have passed through the valley of death, and now I think we are on a strong wicket.
Wow, that is amazing. I mean, your growth figures for 2020 are mind-boggling, if I might say.
Yeah.
Let me also ask viewers, what kinds of robots would you be comfortable using as a consumer? And I'd love to hear from anyone who's watching us. Rajiv, in India, what has been your experience? Where is there, a lot of acceptance of robots, and for what kind of professions, and for which is there some hesitation?
Yeah, no, it's a very good question. And I'll take you back when we were thinking of entering into the robotic field way back in 2011. We found that the industrial robots, were a different category altogether. And I don't define a robotic arm as a true robot, because a robot essentially should be almost like a human being, where like a human being moves around, has its own energy, has its own thinking, ability, unlike a tree, which is sedentary, but also a living being. A robotic arm is like a tree, and a robot which moves around is a true robot, without wires, etc. So at that time, industrial robots of that kind were there, but they were mostly in the logistics side rather than in manufacturing side, and it was a different ball game altogether. We said we will be in the service robots and we'll cater to the residential sector first. And when we started to analyze this market, we found that in a home, basically the housewife, the biggest chore used to be the floor cleaning, and so that was the ideal product. And one of the reasons why it has taken off today is also because people who are stuck at home, they realize that the most important task in a home is home cleaning or the floor cleaning, and which is the task which they don't want to do. The topmost is also home cleaning or floor cleaning, and that is one of the reasons why today suddenly it took a pandemic when your housemates can't come, and with everybody is in the home, you don't have the what do you say, luxury of uh, cleaning the home at your own pace. So suddenly the robots have really taken up. And so window cleaning, also was a logical extension for high-rise apartments. Then, floor cleaning, I mean, the lawn mowing robots was also a logical extension for high net worth individuals. And then came the pool cleaning again for high net worth individuals, because we were focusing on that category. And when demonetization and GST happened, then the sales went through. We analyzed, that almost 45, 46% of our customers were double product owners or triple product owners of ours. So we realized, okay, this is a market which is there, but it has a temporary, blip. Where do we concentrate on the B2B side of things? And we started to analyze, and we found the hospitality industry as an ideal, industry, because a housekeeping department will be able to save 30 to 40% time with our window and floor cleaning robots. The pool cleaning department will be able to save almost 70 to 80% of their time and manpower if they use our pool robots, and the payback periods will be less than 3 months, or maybe 3 to 4 months. Lawn robots also 70 to 80% of the manpower will be saved. So suddenly, when we were almost throwing in the towel, hospitality industry actually came to our rescue, and today we have almost 300 400 installations of our pool robots across the country. It is the biggest hit in the hospitality industry. Then
Yeah.
logically, facility management industry like JLL, CBRE, cab I mean Cushman Wakefield, CBRE, JLL, Cushman Wakefield, Sodexo, these are West Corporation,
Yeah.
these are the companies which have to maintain, the facilities in the offices and hotels, etc. So they were very successful, and then they only started to demand from us, disinfection robots, humanoid robots. Housewives started to demand, a back massaging robot, for their lower back, and then
Sounds good.
expanding. But now with the pandemic, I feel that everywhere, whether it is industries, whether it is airports, whether it is museums, whether it is showrooms, whether it is the normal receptions of offices, you will
Yeah.
find an increasing use of the robots.
Yeah, yeah. I'm just going to read some of the comments we have coming in. Pankaj Gupta says, "Hi, great Rajiv ji and Shalini ji. Just please, my co-founder is also here saying thanks for the conversation, Rajiv." Jyoti Berry says she follows your work and finds it a great journey. Gautam Roy says robotics in India is still in the industrial sector, however, with people spending more time at home. How do we see the consumer sector of robotics happening? What are the key innovations you're seeing in this sector? Manashi says this is simply superb work. Thank you, Manashi. Ness Saroja says, nice relevant topic. My question about robotics in India: what is the ethical application of robots? From where we first need to apply robotics to make humans more creative? How in everyday life can each person use it? So,
Okay.
wondering if you'd like to take a couple of these questions.
So basically, two questions. One is about the consumer sector, and one is about the ethical use of robots. So let's talk about the consumer sector first. So as I mentioned to you, our organization itself has grown in the consumer sector by almost about 400%, because what the industry which saved us today, which is the hospitality industry, is almost it came to a standstill because of the
Yeah,
pandemic. The
yeah,
hotels were
yeah,
completely locked down. Our
yeah,
sales completely are zero almost. Now
yeah.
again, as the hotels are opening up, they are coming back to us with new demand. But in the consumer sector, the product which has really grown is the floor cleaning robots. And because swimming pools are still closed, so swimming pool
Mhm.
robots not much, lawn robots not much because of the rainy season, window cleaning robots yes, but at a much lesser pace than the floor cleaning robots. So floor cleaning robots, if we see the last year market size, it was only about 10,000 units. This year, I had estimated that if the supply chain constraints don't exist, maybe we will have almost a 3,000% growth to about 3,000, 300,000 robots units being sold in
Wow.
the space. That was the estimation. I don't think now it will happen because of the China India problem, because a lot of components still come from there. And June, July was a very crucial month for bringing in components for Diwali,
Hmm.
upsurge and things like that.
Yeah.
So probably the growth will be much lesser. But when we compare it with China, the China robotic floor cleaning market is almost 3 million units, and Indian market mirrors, the China market 3 to 5 years, down the line. So it's the same thing happened in televisions or smart televisions, smartphones, washing machines, refrigerators. So I believe that it is going to be, a massive upsurge. Now coming to the next question, which is in terms of the ethical use of robots. No, it's a very, very good question. And, I remember that when we first launched our IMAP 8.0, which was the first robot which could live map a consumer home, right? So obviously there were issues which were related to privacy. Are we capturing something which we should not capture? Whatever we are capturing, should we let it remain in the robot, or should we actually give it to the mobile app, right? Should we give it to the mobile app through the air, which is in a highly secure environment, and just keep it at the level of the user's mobile, or should we store it somewhere in the server? So those questions came in, and we actually designed an app where we did not ask for any right, from the customer. We just prompted. In case the customer wanted to use, fine. If not, he would not be able to store the maps, etc. And but we never went in for a 3D kind of photography or mapping. We just kept it at the floor level, 2D, and 2D also in kind of a graphical form, not in a recognizable form as to what exactly is the table, what exactly is the object which is there. So an object is almost like a stone or a leg of the product. So we kept those kind of things in mind. Same thing now when we have entered into the humanoids, and face recognition technology is a big thing, and companies want to use it for face recognition, from the attendance perspective, or when people are coming in, or the hospitals want to use it for measuring the temperature of the person who is coming in, and you can have a thermoplegic camera, which actually makes it very difficult to recognize a person. But when you are doing it, for recognizing a person, whether he has temperature or not, obviously the purpose is lost in case you use it for the thermoplastic,
Yeah.
stuff. So then you have to have an additional camera. You need to have the monitoring where this person went, because there is the protocol which a hospital has to establish. So there are
Mhm.
such challenges, but industry is overcoming them one by one. Standards are coming in. In a country like the UK today, there is a movement and certain laws which have been enacted that if robots are taking certain jobs, then the accountability parameters which were there for human beings have to be also imposed on the robots which are taking their jobs, and which is the right way. And
Mhm.
so you have regulatory framework which also kind of tackles the ethical responsibility which robots have.
And I think it's a fascinating discussion and probably a whole subfield in its own right, ethics
Yeah.
in robotics, AI, because as you said, some of the uses of robots, be it for medical purposes, security purposes, and many others, will make them, will give them access to information that can be private, personal, and how is that information used is probably going to become a whole area of its own.
Yeah, yeah.
Rajiv,
For
one
example,
question.
Alexa or Google Home, they're always
Yes,
listening. So,
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
I think I lost you. Some signal issue.
Yeah, I'm back. Got frozen out there for a moment. So,
Yeah, yeah,
Rajiv, one of the questions I have is that, a lot of what you spoke about as the uses for robots, and it completely makes sense that they're starting with, the physical tasks that maybe, at a household level, they're inconvenient unless you have help. And
mm,
certainly at a B2B level, hospitality, etc., cleaning, pool cleaning, etc., etc. So largely physical, manual labor kind of roles, which perhaps are going to be one of the earliest to move to robots.
yeah,
But as of course there is a rise in empathetic machines, and in some parts of the world, they're going to be a very important part of the caregiving business as a whole. So, Japan, of course, with an aging population, has been planning for this for the last several years. And year on year, the acceptance of robots as caregivers for the elderly goes up. So, in a recent study by Nippon, some 84% of Japanese respondents spoke about how they were quite comfortable with the idea of robotic caregivers, partly because they feel a little uncomfortable imposing on humans, and partly because it's just much easier as a relationship to manage. So, wondering what are your thoughts around the empathetic machines and their future in India?
it's a great question, and I think one of the biggest challenges for the robotics industry. Uh, you know, Empathy is not just something which gets shown or conveyed by speech or expressions, or by certain physical actions, which are visible to others. There is a visceral, aspect to empathy, which is a visceral as well as nervous, aspect to
Yeah,
empathy. So, if suppose the two of us are talking and I have said something which is not to your liking, so one is I can see some expressions on your face, or a fleeting expression in your eye, which may go in a fraction of a second, but my eye has the ability to see that expression, and then what I do with it is dependent on me. But if I have trained myself, I would also be able to see if there is any tear rising up inside your body, which will take maybe 3 minutes or 4 minutes to come to your eyes. That's empathy, right? But when we look at a robot today, even the Sophia which you talk about, how does the Sophia work? When Sophia is speaking, its mic is off. So when Sophia is speaking, it cannot hear itself also, right? Because if it hears itself, its mind will get confused because it has heard you. Now it has switched off its mind. Now it has kind of whatever it has been trained to do or whatever script has been written at the back end, it is drawing from that and expressing. In the meanwhile, you try to stop Sophia. Sophia will not stop, right? It will continue to say something or whatever, but now the motors, the actuators, everything has been done in such a way that the lip will move in a way, the nostril will move in a particular way, some muscle on the cheek, some lines on the forehead will come, the ears will move, the eyes will move. So those are all capturing of certain parameters and then replicating them with a certain script, right? So while it may in a scripted situation, a Sophia may come across as very empathetic, but in reality, it is not empathetic because somebody is controlling it. And if the script goes off, then certain expressions will be you will find them very strange. Let's go to Japan, and let's talk of Paro the seal, which has been found to give dramatic effects to the depressed patients, right?
Yeah.
Now, why is it that people find Paro very useful? Paro doesn't speak. Paro is very cuddly. Paro makes certain noises almost like a baby, as if the baby needs you, but the baby won't react to you. So, a mentally depressed patient, what does he or she want? They want someone who won't react. They want someone who will not judge. They want a touch and feel and a cuddling to them where they feel wanted, desired without any conditions attached, right? So Paro is something which gives that feeling but is not interacting with them. Now whether we should call Paro an empathetic robot or not depends upon us, but Paro by its ability is not empathetic. I feel that empathy is one of the greatest challenges which robotics industry faces. Otherwise we robots can fake very well the expressions of empathy, but actually they may not be empathetic, right? So being from the robotics industry, I'm saying this because I have watched this thing very, very carefully and very closely. Maybe a time will come that we will be able to do it, but please remember that scientists till today haven't been able to figure out the number of layers which the nervous system, a human nervous system has, right? So, when we haven't even figured out what we have in terms of neural networks, how do we replicate it in a robot? I think it is quite some time away. But if you really want to see what an empathetic robot can be, I would recommend to you as well as the audience a wonderful movie called The Bicentennial Man, and it is a Robin Williams movie. It is, it carries on for almost about 4 generations, and how a robot's quest to die as a human is captured in that movie is simply awesome. So please, if you
Yeah.
get a please see that movie.
Yeah, it's on my list now.
Yeah.
But you
Yeah.
know, Rajiv, like all of us in the last few years, we've gotten used to, say, speaking with our Alexa or a Siri or, whatever else system you might have. Uh, and, the recent, the Sundar Pichai, when he unveiled the Google Assistant and we saw that AI make his appointment, I think it was for a hairdresser. Uh, Not just did it sound extremely natural, but it was, operating at the level of a very highly social skilled person. Not even all human beings can be as
Mhm.
fluent and as charming as
Mhm.
that assistant was. Uh, so I'm wondering if you think that we're actually getting very, very close, and when the day comes, uh, their speech is not just going to be what the average human speech will be like, but it'll they will sound like very socially skilled human beings. Wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah. So very, very good, question again. There are two parts to a human being, hardware and software, and there are two parts to a machine, which is hardware and software. When human beings think emotionally or empathetically, what happens is those thoughts have the power to change our hardware also, right?
True.
Which is maybe even the muscles, the
Yeah.
ligaments, and things like
Yeah.
that. In a machine, when it thinks, it is not actually thinking, it is actually drawing from certain scripts which have been written for it, right? And the higher the number of alternatives which you give to that machine to read, the more ability it will demonstrate to in
Mm.
terms of voice modulation or number of different ways of answering a question, right? So that it's about the script. Now, the moment you put that script on a machine, which has also got to change a lot of expressions, and it has to happen simultaneously, you know,
Mm.
you will find it very difficult to replicate. Software is still easier. One to one is still easier. But then when multiple things are happening in a store, for example, and if five people are speaking simultaneously to
Mm.
a robot will suddenly not be able to handle that kind of stuff.
Mm.
Even the walking, if you see, the Asimo robot, which is one of the
Yeah.
most advanced, or if you
Agile. Yeah.
look at Sophia itself, all these bipeds, the knees are slightly bent, right? But
Right.
the way God has designed us, we are able to stand erect. Of course, it took it God a lot, billions of years to humans also. So, so the journey is still, happening. Software is easier to tackle, but
Okay.
when the software has to, I mean, easier means easier on a very high grade of
Right.
easiness, but it is still easier, versus the tackling and the matching of the hardware and software. The
Right.
real challenge is, how do you actually merge them, match them in
Right.
the best hardware possible?
Right. Do you think Sophia has done a lot for increasing the visibility and maybe even acceptance of very human-like robots?
Yes, Sophia has done a lot, in terms of the visibility, about the people talking about it, etc. But if the initial Sophia, when it was launched, it was only the upper torso, right?
Yes.
If you see it carefully. So the bottom portion wasn't really built. Now slowly they're trying to build it, and they're trying to train it. And about 2 months ago, there was a conversation of Sophia with with a professor of psychology, and it is a very interesting discussion where the Sophia tells how Sophia thinks and acts, and this psychology professor tells how humans think and act, and you will actually see the difference. So Hanson Robotics has done a great job, in terms of raising awareness of humanoids, but humanoids to really come mainstream and act seamlessly like human beings, or become, almost like a co-worker, like a human co-worker, are, according to me, at least 5 to 6 years
Five
away.
to six years. Okay. I'm just going to read some of the comments. Niharika asks, do robots have a humanistic aspect? They can't replace humans. The need of robots is vital everywhere. Munir, hi Munir, says, nice seeing two of my friends in great conversation. Gautam says, robotics will replace manual workers. What is your view on this when India is such a highly populated country? I'm sure this is
Okay.
a topic you get
Yeah.
questioned about all the
So
time.
again, two comments, very very good comments. So first comment, yeah, I think it was Niharika or somebody. In our organization, we always talk about this, that robots can be almost human, but humans can never be robots, right? Because we have our own way of thinking. We will not just accept somebody to say, you know, come very quickly, and we are on a phone call, and we'll just dump the call and just go somewhere else. Our thinking is, okay, we'll tell to the other person, okay, somebody is calling me, I will keep, etc., etc. So there is a human decision making element which comes in at every stage. So robots can do certain things much more efficiently than the human beings, but and they can be very close to human beings, but they cannot replace human beings, because the human beings have this aspect, whether you call it consciousness, whether you call it empathy, or whether you call it, the neural networks, which are much much more advanced. Now, coming to the second part, of the second question, which is about robots replacing or manual labor, or causing job losses. I'm just broadening the question a little bit. It's a great question, but let's look at it from this perspective that there are so many homemakers in this country who have great capabilities, to contribute to a nation's progress. But what are they doing? How is their time being utilized in the homes, for domestic chores? Even in our own offices, there are people who are capable, but jobs are very limited already. But what are they being used for? Menial tasks, domestic chores, office chores. According to me, if we can reskill our people, if we can free the trapped human potential of this country to contribute to economic progress, right, and let the robots take care of the really menial, mundane tasks, it's a great thing to have, right?
It's such a tough one, Rajiv, because
No, no, I am coming
yeah,
to
for
that.
sure.
Now, look at it in it. So this is one aspect which I've given you. Second, if suppose Germany has to reclaim its manufacturing powerhouse status from China, how will it do it? With very high cost manpower, with aging manpower, right? With lot of new rules which are there for to use the manpower, etc. Obviously, they'll use robotics. If now come to China, if China wants to protect its stranglehold over manufacturing, it has to destroy its jobs today, right? To be able to prevent Germany from reclaiming the competitiveness which is there with China. If India, in one side is Germany, one side is China, if we have to say that we will reclaim our position, we cannot do it with televisions and automobiles, right? Unless automobiles are also like Tesla kind of automobiles at the cutting edge of technology. We have to deploy and use or employ and use VR, virtual reality, artificial intelligence, deep learning. We have to use, the robotics technology and the advancements in robotic technologies, in electric vehicles, in battery technology, etc., etc. And we have to invest in them. That is how we will be able to not just become Atmanirbhar, but also make for the world, right? So this is one aspect. Now I'll take you back to when an electronic typewriter came. Everybody said typists will lose their job. When the mobile phones came, the exchanges will lose their job. People who are working in the exchanges, this will happen or that will happen. But the economy evolved, the economy progressed, the quality of life of the people went up, right? We should never fear technology. All progress in the world happens by adoption of technology. If God had stopped at the making of the first pig, humans would never have been born or been created. So we should not fear about this. As a country, if we are able to make and produce things in a competitive manner by usage of robotics, the number of jobs and the economic growth which will happen, which will far outpace the job losses which we'll have. Of course, there'll be a turmoil. Today, in every nook and corner of this country, a person, there are people who don't understand one word of English, but they are designing and writing software, IT software for the people across the globe. So the language of robotics is also like that. So we should look at it positively, not look at it as a threat. And if there is a threat, it is not your weakness, and right now. But if you ignore the threat, it becomes your weakness. If there's a threat, do something about it and become a much stronger and a much more competitive country.
Rajiv, I completely agree with you on the fact that I don't think any country today has the choice. It's you can't wish away the efficiencies provided by many technologies, and if you did, if you unilaterally decided you would not use them, then you would be lost in the back and beyond. So that's really not a option for any country, today. But at the same time, uh, like you yourself said, right, that you say in the pools, 70, they can manage with much less manpower. I think 70-80% you said, could be done. So at least in the short term, and we don't know about whether in this industrial revolution, what kinds of jobs are going to emerge. It's not as yet so clear whether people who have simply manual jobs will automatically be able to move to whatever is the new family of jobs being created. So, at least in the short term, do you think that there is some reason for this question at least to be raised? Fair question?
No, it is a fair question, but the answer is not in terms of avoidance of this technology or adoption of
I
this
agree.
technology.
I agree
let's
there.
let's let's look at a coal mine worker,
Yeah.
and we see
Yeah.
coal mine accidents, and Kala Patthar, a great movie,
Yeah.
if you remember of
Yeah.
our
I do
times.
remember
People
actually.
talking about, don't we
Or
think, or
sewage workers.
recently, the
Or
sewage workers recently,
sewage
right?
workers today. Yeah,
So, so,
absolutely.
so should the robotics technology not be adopted very
Mhm.
quickly in these areas? Yes, right?
Absolutely.
So now there are a lot of coal miners who will lose their job, a lot of sewage workers who will lose their job. What is the society's responsibility? What is the government's responsibility to reskill them? Right? Reskill them and not let them loose on the roads to become criminals or a social threat. So there is a responsibility of us as citizens, of us as responsible businesses, or the society at large, or the governments to make people safe, their citizens safe, and yet take care of them. So answers are difficult, but the
Yeah.
answers have to be found to
Yeah.
such issues.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I think the answers are not going to be easy at all because it's not so simple. Um,
Yeah.
they have to be found. It's not a question which anyone can avoid.
Yes. Yes.
People like Bill Gates have said, okay, what about a tax on robotics just to slow things down? Of course, if your GST is 28%, I don't know what else to say. But, is that so, I mean, it's a complex issue and it's not an issue which uh, any one person. It will be multiple parts of any country, the government, people like yourself, think tanks, who will need to find some of these answers too. And I also agree, avoidance is not the issue, but the threat
Yeah.
does seem like it's a question which is an important one. What will it mean
Yeah.
for?
Yeah.
So I'll
Yeah.
just take a few more questions. Vijay is saying, hi, great to see you, Rajiv, after a long time. Uh, he says, wait, just a second. Ah, I'm taking your second question, Vijay. Um, Rajiv, what if AI ethics can be superior than humans? After all, humans have many cognitive biases. With real world use cases and applications defined, an emotionally intelligent AI can work to eliminate cognitive biases that are common to us. What are your thoughts? It's a good question.
Ethically, AI can definitely be, superior to, humans, but whether artificial intelligence is better than natural intelligence is the question which we should answer first. So the rules which can be written by humans, for robots are easier to write, and as long as you strongly control them,
Hmm.
right? So those rules will be followed. But so were the rules made for humans at a certain point in time. So were the constitutions written. So were so many aspects. But the moment you allow deep learning to happen, where the robot, the software, kind of starts to learn and decide on its own, at that point in time, you suddenly have to have certain standards, certain more rules, certain interceptions, where thinking doesn't go awry. Some of the
Hmm.
experiments of Microsoft themselves last year in terms of the chatbots, and very quickly, people were able to force the chatbot to almost become racist, by
Yeah.
bombarding it with too many questions. So
Mm.
rules can be written, but the thing is, till today, it is the human beings which possess the highest form of intelligence, and artificial intelligence is just starting to mirror or demonstrate abilities what humans have. So let's not have too much of expectation.
Expectation.
But yes, your question is good. Initially, yes, it can appear to be better than humans.
And the reason I'm laughing, Rajiv, is that sometimes I'm not even so sure that's true. But anyway, let me share a research on actually robotic recruiters uh, for for job roles, for shortlisting employees. And one of the most interesting aspects of this study was compared to human beings, robotic recruiters as interviewers did better. And you want to know why? Because the lack of cognitive biases. Everybody's asked the same set of questions faithfully, and everybody's answers are truly used to map against a certain metric. So that was a really interesting study I came across. And when interviewees were asked about their experience and whether they enjoyed it, surprisingly, the vast number said they enjoyed the experience, maybe even better than a human interviewer. And perhaps because that particular, robotic interviewer was designed to be cheerful, put the other person at ease, ask you how was your day, how did you get here, all the soft skills which it's not essential all humans have. I mean, some have, but a lot don't. So, interviewees felt it was a nice, positive experience, and so I myself am not sure because humans also have such a wide range of responses, right? There are the super skilled, super empathetic human beings, and then there's the other extreme as much, and the whole range in between.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, one of my questions then is, Rajiv. What do you think is going to be the impact of all of us working with robotic colleagues at some point or the other?
See, it is quite some time away, that human looking colleagues, which are actually robots or cobots working with us. Uh, Second is that if they achieve the similar kind of ability, right, uh, it will be no different like working with another coworker who is who has similar competence, lesser competence, or higher competence. If a robot has higher competence than the human being will detest that robot. If it has similar competence and kind of similar stuff which the robot is designed to do, you will relate well with the robot. And when the robot has lesser competence than or it has been designed in such a way, then obviously you will make fun of that robot or whatever, right? So human beings have this great ability to look at things from their personal perspective, right? And also, going back to your research which you quoted about the robots being interviewed, I mean the people being interviewed by robots, in that, so if suppose somebody comes to me, and in fact after this session we have some interviews scheduled, so it was very topical for me. So the thing is, what is the principle which I apply when somebody is a fresher? That person only has certain attitude which I look at, the potential. And to judge that, I give some certain simulations, and I look at the facial expressions, I look at their contributions, the family background, etc., etc. When somebody is experienced, which I'm interviewing, and 5, 10 years of experience, I look at the track record because that person has had enough run. A Sachin Tendulkar will be consistently consistent, and a Vinod Kambli will be consistently inconsistent, right? So you have a track record of somebody, so
Yeah.
you look at the track record. So when you have to look at the track record, maybe a robot can do a good job, but when you have to look at somebody's potential, how do you actually judge a potential. There are a lot of other factors. This movie which I talked about, there is this robot who has emotions like human beings, and now he has to marry. He goes to a robotic lab, and there is another female robot. This female robot is very joyful, and etc., etc., but she continues to be in the same mode all the time. And after that, after some time, this robot, which is like a human being, says, I don't want to have anything to do with this lady robot, because she doesn't have the emotions or the ups and downs which a human being expresses. So after some time, you will not be very happy with someone who doesn't demonstrate any ups and downs. So vulnerability, because of what life gives you, is also a very interesting aspect of human beings, which endears them, to each other.
Yeah, yeah.
So
I give you. I think you're absolutely right. I think you're absolutely right. Actually, that um, when we connect human to human, it's a much more complex experience. The information we're receiving, interpreting, it's a much more complex phenomenon. And also the fact that in human to human connects, it's a vast range of emotional,
yeah,
the whole entire spectrum that you hope to have an opportunity to both express and receive.
yeah,
But I think maybe for some roles where you want people to be pleasant all the time, maybe it'll work actually quite well there. Like if you're, in a queue to get something stamped and you just have a 1 minute interaction, 2 minute interaction, you want that interaction to be smooth, you want to, it to be pleasant, and it's much easier to do that, obviously,
I'll
available
tell you an incident which it happened in reality when 2012 we launched our robots, and there was a half-page article done by Nona Walia in the Times of India, and they called it the robotic buys, and they made a buy in the shop, shape of a human being with a jhadu in the hand, but actually our robot was a small disc like a weighing machine. But the person in Punjab thought that the robotic buy will be almost like the way they have
there.
demonstrated this thing. So this person called me, and I in fact called on the landline. I happened to pick it up, and he says in Punjabi, sir ji ਇਹ ਜਿਹੜੀ robotic buy
Robotic,
ਹੈਗੀ,
right?
ਇਹਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਕੁੜੀ ਨਾਲ ਭੇਜ ਦਿਆਂ, ਉਹਦੀ ਸ਼ਾਦੀ ਹੈ ਅਗਲੇ ਮਹੀਨੇ, ਸਭ ਕੁਝ ਕਰ ਦੇਗੀ, ਉਹ ਬਰਤਨ ਵੀ ਮਾਂਜ ਦੇਗੀ, ਜੁੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਚਮਕਾ ਦੇਗੀ, ਫਲੋਰ ਵੀ ਕਰ ਦੇਗੀ. So when we think of robots, the robot word, sometimes we imagine everything to be in the form of a human being, but robots are not in the, they can do multiple jobs, even as I am sitting. So if I have a robotic toy or a gadget which comes and just polishes my shoes and goes away, even as I'm talking to you, I'll not be disturbed by my shoes will get polished, so the
Right.
robots will slowly be all pervasive, but not necessarily that they'll be our colleagues or they'll look like human beings.
No, the other thing actually I was going to say is you were right in your assessment of how humans would respond to robotic colleagues, because there's been research at Cornell to study
Mhm.
human, and when you have human and robots working in the same team, how do they respond? How do humans? How would we respond? And many of the phenomenon you would expect with people to people, you see the same with people to robots. So, for instance, robots which respond to work only when they're asked to, compared to robots which are able to anticipate your needs. So, the first are considered lazy compared to, see, it's like
Yeah,
we
yeah,
project human emotions onto them. Uh,
right.
so the first set is considered lazier than the second
Yeah,
set, and
yeah,
that's just because that's our way of you know our way of working with another I don't even know, one can't call it a being, but another, what do you say, another person, whether human or not. And
yeah,
similarly, like our feeling of competition. So, in teams where robots performed much better than the human colleagues, which I think it is possible to have for many situations, humans felt discouraged. And
Yeah.
at the same time, if robots in a team were programmed to be pleasant, even-ended in their, spirit, humans also learned. It rubbed off on the humans as well. So, from the early studies of, how what happens in human to robotic interactions, we're seeing that. I guess once we get past the surprise and the the initial maybe
Yeah.
experience
In
of
a, yeah, what
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, then it becomes almost like the way we would judge another human being.
Yes,
So I'm
yes,
just going to
true.
take the last few questions, and I realize we are reaching the end of our time. See, Hariharan, hi. We are talking team working, collaboration, etc. Are the skills required the most? How robots will handle this situation in a workplace, especially when one person needs some support.
So, again, most of the robots will have to be customized, for a particular task. And, like while human beings feel that they are the greatest multitaskers, but frankly speaking, all the latest, research actually tells you that multitasking really doesn't work because at any point in time when you're doing two or three different jobs, you are actually not realizing, but you are either sub-optimizing, one task or all the tasks, or you are thinking that you have made a great decision, but you may not have made a great decision on the other stuff, and also missed a lot of important aspects. So, multitasking is a very, kind of a subject which we should, as human beings, also look at. So, uh, robots designed to do a customized job, and also saying that if your colleague needs XYZ help, they will have to be programmed for that. Questions will have to be asked, questions will have to be answered from the repository which this robot has at the back end, right? So, so it is possible to do, but the jobs will have to be well defined for that particular robot, and it will work in only those that domain.
Those
So
contexts.
whether it is intellectual input or whether it is physical help. So if a robot and you are sitting together and you fall on the floor, a
Hmm.
human being will pick you up. But if this robot which is standing next to you, has not been programmed to pick you up, and it has been only programmed to pick you up emotionally, so it was doing a great job, and you will feel, that I have fallen down, and now
Yeah.
2 minutes ago you were talking so nicely in a very empathetic manner, and now I've fallen down. It is not helping me. So you have to really train it and
Yeah.
make it for that purpose.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I can completely see that actually. Even I can see that kind of shock that you were so
Yeah.
empathetic earlier. Kusum Makar Pandey says, what I really appreciate about Mr. Karwal is how he continually grows, his Electrolux achievements, and now a totally new space. Um, Kusumakar says, what is the progress on eliminating AI bias in recruitment? I guess it's not, this wouldn't be your area, right?
No, no, but you can answer it, Shalini, very well.
I think this is an area which a lot of work is happening, and because it's a cause of great concern,
Yeah.
one of the challenges of AI is that all human biases actually now get institutionalized because, after all, uh, they learn from data sets which have very imperfect behaviors. So it's
Yeah.
a real challenge. Actually, even the fact that all assistants, I'm sure you're familiar with this controversy, but all assistants so far, Alexa, Siri, and the many, many others, uh,
Yeah.
are all in a female voice.
Yeah.
So, the fact is that it plays to the idea of, a female being associated with being an assistant. It plays into that idea. I know from a manufacturer perspective, they probably found that people respond better to that voice because it feels more maybe friendly or nurturing, or so. I'm sure, I mean, there's enough consumer data to which drives the fact, but there's also the reality that, you know, there is a downside to it, that, if all the assistants, robotic assistants, I don't know, but AI assistants are going to be women, then somewhere deep inside it's, sort of reinforcing the idea that women are assistants and whatever you do. So that these are real challenges.
What is happening is that in the pursuit of commerce, we continue to reinforce stereotypes.
Yes.
The stereotype of a mother, the stereotype of a father,
Yeah.
of a grandfather, of a
Yeah.
girlfriend, of a wife,
Yeah.
of a husband. So as long as humans continue to push the stereotypes, the biases to be taken away from whatever human beings create
Yes. Yes.
is going to
Yeah.
be all the more difficult.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And I'm sure you're familiar with, because in many parts of East Asia, there are girlfriend robots,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
people who are living by themselves,
yeah,
their companions and more. So, there's
yeah,
this whole, I think, there's going to be a lot of thinking which will need to happen.
yeah,
All this seems to be happening faster than maybe the ethics
yeah,
conversations and an
yeah,
understanding of the true impact.
yeah, yeah,
So,
yeah.
one last question, Rajiv, because I understand that we're at the end of our time. Uh, Vijay asks, how about robotic process automation, doing most of the jobs like replying to emails, writing articles, sending an analysis of reports or meetings, besides other hard edge technical jobs?
So I think it is already happening, and I think, for example, Google today, when you get an email, it actually says, "Shall I plot it on your calendar?" It gives you templated answers. Go to
Mhm.
LinkedIn, go to Facebook. Even Google will give you, completion of sentences.
Hmm.
Automatically, subject gets filled. So, robotic process automation, especially on the software side, is happening big time, and also now it is happening in logistics in a big way. It is happening in facility management in a big way. It is happening in manufacturing in a big way. So it is an idea whose time has come. There are challenges, but anything which is repetitive in nature, where too much of variation from the output which comes across to the robot for decision making, is not involved. You will see more and more robotic process automation actually coming in. Wherever there are factors which are beyond the numerical and certain patterns, it is there that human element would come in. But you will see massive, adoption of robotic process automation almost every sphere of life, even in India, irrespective of the fact that we may fear job losses or whatever. But the people now realize, companies realize, that if they have to compete, even a garment manufacturer will realize that if they have to compete with a Vietnamese or a Bangladeshi organization, with suddenly migrant workers going away, lockdown really happening, factories, a lot of laws imposed on the, the occupier of the factory, that if
Mhm.
somebody,
Mhm.
they themselves will be
Yeah.
penalized. They'll say, I'll much more adopt a robot which
Yeah.
will do and will not get affected by corona, and obviously I'll be able to do my business also. No, these are exigencies, or requirements of the business. So you will see increasing usage everywhere, and maybe temporarily some turmoil, but it is also a chance for the government as well as us as citizens, or the younger generation, to reskill ourselves, looking at the opportunities, and move to higher value added jobs.
Thanks, Rajiv. I think one of the key things I'm taking from our conversation today is, in India, like everywhere else, robotics is here. The numbers you've spoken about and the pent up demand
Yeah.
you spoke about is obviously just an indication of how likely it is that over the next few years we're going to see an explosion in this field, which of course will be great for you from a business perspective. And it might start in, in certain areas, like you said, cleaning in particular, and perhaps some of the hazardous ones, maybe window cleaning, pool cleaning. One hopes that in other hazardous operations as well, definitely sewage comes to mind, but any of the others where human beings are still being used, so there would be adoption of that, but it's likely to very quickly spread, both as the machines themselves become more sophisticated and capable of handling a wider variety, and as perhaps people, all of us, get more comfortable with the idea of working alongside human beings, alongside robots as part of our
Yeah.
team. So that's
Yeah.
really the key point that I'm taking away from this, Rajiv. Um,
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much for being on our show.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you, Shalini.
Thank you. So I hope you really enjoyed that conversation with Rajiv. I think it was amazing. He's really a pioneer in the field of robots in India. And obviously, he's really at the cutting edge of insights into Indian consumer behavior and some of the unique challenges we have in our country, where there's still a lot of anxiety around what this is going to mean for job loss. Now, next week, our conversation is going to be on Thursday. We have the associate partner of Strategizers UK office, Mr. Tendai Vicky, also the author of the book Pirates in the Navy, coming to speak to us on the challenges of being an intrapreneur. So do join us at noon next week on Thursday. And as usual, replays of our conversation today can be seen on my LinkedIn profile or on our YouTube channel, and they'll be up on our website on Monday. So, with that, we come to the end of our show today. I hope you had a great time and have a great rest of the weekend. Thank you and bye.